Another question that I've got. So we've got all of these different lengths of leases. So you've got, 99 years, 125, 999, 125. Then you talk about 90 years above the current lease. I mean, where does it fall into this? Is it just the cost? It's more expensive, for instance, to get a 999 lease than a 125, or how do you decide what kind of lease extension you're going to go for?
Well, in general, if I'm doing, well, if we start with section 42 first. If we're doing section 42 notice, then what happens is you extend the lease by 90 years with peppercorn ground rent going forward. So that's with a section 42 notice. That's the only way that you can obviously extend the lease and buy that amount. Okay. Right? So peppercorn ground rent, which means 0 ground rent, and it's 90 years above what it is at the moment. So just for argument's sake, last year, actually, the rules changed. I think it was the 30th of June, 2022. Any new lease extension is going to has to have peppercorn ground rent going forward. So just for argument's sake, say you have a lease which is 60 years and you go down the section 42 route and it's extended by 90 years with peppercorn ground rent, so you're going to have a 150-year lease left on it now. Now, depending on how you or your solicitor have negotiated this, the remaining 60 years, or the first 60 years, shall I say, will be on the old ground rent, which could be £100 a month, £100 a year, £50 a year, whatever it may be. And then when that expires, then the new 90-year lease will be on peppercorn ground rent. So if I go down the section 42 route, which I've been doing anyway sometimes, and I extend it by 90 years to 150, I get peppercorn ground rent from day one.
Is that just a negotiation? Is that literally just a question of asking, can we do this?
Yeah, a negotiation basically, yeah. So try and do it from day one. Some of them might be sly and do it the other way, which is the normal way in a way. But I want it from day one. So as soon as you extend the lease, I want 150 years with peppercorn ground rent from the start, from day one. Yeah, so they might offer you the first route, try and reject it, and then just obviously try and get it from day one, right? Now, if you're doing the voluntary route, then like you said, you can extend it, the lease, to 99 years, to 125 years. You can also do the 90 years above peppercorn ground rent as well. You can extend it to 999, years as well. And one that I've done recently is 99 years from the start of the original lease. So this lease started in 1987, and then they've agreed to extend it by 999 from 1987, not from 2003. But I'm happy with that anyway. I'm fine with that anyway, because it's still going to be a long lease. So
999 still a fair whack, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. So if you extend it to 99 years, it's going to be a bit cheaper. But if you're doing 125 or above, then you might as well just go for 999 if you can. Going forward. But Jeremy Hunt mentioned last week, was it last week? I think it was last week or week before that. At the King's speech, should I say?
It's weird, isn't it? I said that to my parents last night. It's like so weird. I was around London and I was like, oh no, it's the King, not the Queen.
That's it, it's changed now. Yeah, so but he said he's going to try and reform the leasehold itself. Now, one of the reasons why he's doing it is because the big players were taking advantage of people buying houses. So obviously there's leasehold flats, but then there's also leasehold houses. And what some of the big players were doing, big like major developers, they were building houses with leases on them. And then there's all different variations to this, but one of the variations was they'll do it to have ground rent to maybe £100 a year, and then every 5 years that will double. Yeah, and then what they'll do, they'll package it up, and then they'll sell it on to another person or another company. Now, when the ground rent doubles every so often, when it goes above 250, for example, the lenders don't like it at all. So if you try and get a mortgage or a remortgage and your ground rent's doubled or doubling every 20 years or every 33 years or something like that, lenders will not give you the mortgage. So there were some mortgage prisoners who went on some variable and they were just being killed because of that. And then, so they've cut it out now, which is good. That's where that reform came in last year. And then the new one now, obviously leasehold houses, again, is more aimed at that. Obviously, you've got leasehold flats as well, but it's more aimed at that because he wants people to actually own their property rather than just lease it in that sense. So he's thinking about possibly somehow abolishing the marriage value, which I don't know how he's going to do because he's going to, in theory, he's got to compensate some of the freeholders somehow.
And also when you think about, like, we've got towns near us where, you know, old families own like literally half or most of the town on a freehold, and sometimes they're very positive, sometimes they're not. So with that kind of old family money, there's going to be a lot of backbenchers who might be making some bits against that. So, but so going back to those basics again. So you've talked about the Section 42 and then the voluntary lease. Could you just explain the sort of the difference between those two?
Yeah, the voluntary one is more, you can write to the freeholder yourself, or if you want to, you can get your solicitor to write to the freeholder on your behalf. I just write to them myself. And then in those letters, you can ask them. Is that when you own
it yourself? Sorry. So is that if you've bought it and then after 2 years, that's when you'd write the letter? Is that correct?
Yeah. In theory, you're meant to own it for 2 years before you can apply for a lease extension, but you can do it beforehand. I mean, it's up to the freeholder if they want to say yes or no.
Oh, okay. So it's more of a choice thing.
Yeah, all of the cases that I've done, none of them have told me to wait until 2 years.
Is that because they don't know, do you think? Or
they want the cash. They want the cash. If they're getting 25, 30 grand, 40 grand, like being offered that, they want it now. They don't want to wait 2 years or 3 years time or whenever it is. They want it now.
So have you ever had anyone say, "Oh no, I don't want the money, let's wait for 2 years"?
No, not yet. Not yet. Not yet.
But you've always owned it at that stage, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But if you're doing it beforehand, if you're doing it for profit, we want to extract your cash straight away, then the best thing to do is get the vendor to serve a Section 42 notice on your behalf. And then you've got 2 ways of doing this one afterwards. They assign the Section 42 notice over to yourself, and then you can complete that within the first 6 to 8 weeks if you've got a decent solicitor, and then you can extend the lease that way. You can get them to serve a Section 42 notice when you're purchasing it, and then you can offer to pay the cost of lease extension before you complete. So I've done some where I've extended the lease, I've exchanged, and I've completed all on the same day. So as soon as I get the keys, it's a new lease extension straight away. And if you're doing it the voluntary route as well, like the one, but 3 during lockdown 1, is it March 2020? That sort of time, April 2020 and June 2020. I think the April one, the woman is a 64-year lease, and on the viewing with the agent, and she was at home as well, the vendor. So I said, do you have any idea of how much it costs to extend my lease? And then she said, I've got, wait 1 minute, I've got a document in my top drawer in the kitchen. So she's come back, gave me the document. I showed her the document, and the quote was there. So I said, okay. Obviously, she didn't have the money to extend it. So that's where I come in, because she wanted to sell it. Said, I can't afford this, like 18.5 grand, can't extend the lease. So that's where obviously us investors come in to try and buy it. And then I said, all right then, because you've got it there, and that's a reasonable figure for this lease, can you start the process of extending the lease? I'll pay for it. And then when we complete, I'll have a new lease, obviously exchange and complete all on the same day.
Did you have some kind of like reservation agreement or something, or was it you know, the fact that you'd already kind of agreed, because, you know, presumably if you're going ahead and buying it, she could have then pulled out and then put it back on the market as a full lease?
She could have, I suppose, but the money, I didn't transfer the money until we exchanged contracts.
Okay.
Well, I put down 10% then as
So
well.
it's kind of like in between. So it was, yeah, it was all in place. I see.
Yeah, and then the actual lease extension money was transferred to the freeholder when I transferred the rest of the deposit. So a few days before we completed, that's when I transferred the rest of the money over. And then it's all completed. So like I said, exchanged, extended the lease, and completed all on the same day. So you can do it that way as well, by the voluntary route. As long as you have an idea of what the lease extension cost is, and if you're happy with it, then you can start the process that way and then complete it before, or actually when you get the keys. There's all different variations. But if you're not happy with the actual quote that is on the document and you see it firsthand, then it probably might be best for you to serve a Section 42 and then get the keys and then finish it off afterwards. But because I know that particular flat, I know the area quite well, so the freeholder wasn't trying to fleece the leaseholder. So I knew that that particular price and that ground rent that was offered was acceptable. Because the big companies try and fleece you. Yeah,
Okay.
Not always, but they try and fleece you sometimes and try and inflate the price.
Yeah.
And then the smaller freeholders, they're more reasonable. They're realistic with their prices.
So that's that's a great segue, in fact, into my next question was, what happens if, you know, you kind of don't agree? So you've mentioned that some of the bigger players, they're trying to demand much bigger amounts. And I know I was looking at a short lease the other day, and they wanted a crazy amount of money for the property and a crazy amount of money for the lease extension. So where do you come what do you do when there's a sort of a difference in what you feel it should be?
Yeah, if there's a discrepancy, then I get my lease extension surveyor involved. That's happened before. They tried to offer, they asked, I think about 7 or 8 grand above what I thought it should be. And then we weren't budging. This was a voluntary one. So I had to get my lease extension surveyor involved, phoned him up. We done a lease extension survey report for £700 plus VAT, I think it was. And then he sent it off to the freeholder and to the freeholder's surveyor. And then once they saw that, they came down in price straight away.
And did it come to what was on the surveyor's report? Yeah,
basically, yeah.
But do they have to?
Surveyor done a survey.
Do they have to go with that, or could they just say, I don't really care?
No, they don't have to go with it. But I think the guy that I got, he's been doing it for 30 odd years. So I think he's well respected in that lease extension game. So I think he's well known as well. So if he says something, then a lot of the time, then they think, okay, this person knows what he's talking about. So they trust the surveyor. So if that surveyor knows this other surveyor, and he's like top, like a quality surveyor, been doing it for years, then they respect his opinion in that sense. They can't argue with it. But if you get to that stage and it's still loggerheads, then the only thing you can do is go to a tribunal, and then the tribunal will sort it out. But with the ones that I do, then they're quite small in terms of they're under like 40k for lease extension. So them ones don't really go to tribunal. But if you go to the ones in central London, like prime central London, where they're like 200,000, 300,000, 500,000, then them ones are more likely to be like at loggerheads and maybe go to a tribunal in that sense. But for these small ones that I do, like 30 grand, 40 grand, it's just normally we just sort out between ourselves.